the moment, over 40 million people across sub-Saharan Africa are food insecure. Simply put, they're having problems getting food on the table. Several countries, in fact, are facing the worst food crises in years. In the past, the response to such incidents by the private sector has often been ad hoc and somewhat disjointed, you could say. Say, for example, in 2011, roughly $10 million was raised in Kenya, mostly through crowdsourcing and corporate donations, to deal with drought in its remote northern region. That, however, may change in future through what's being called the Humanitarian Private Sector Platform. Its creators say it will allow private enterprises to share data with international humanitarian NGOs responding to crises in order to have a more efficient long-term response. Let's dig deep into the details of that platform and what it will do. Catherine Mendes, the Finance and Support Services Director with World Vision. She's live in studio with me right now. Thank you for your time. Help us understand how this works. In the event of, say, a drought in East Africa, or like what we're seeing now in Ethiopia, how will this platform work? What benefits is it bringing to companies beyond this ad hoc on-off responses we often see?
The humanitarian industry has actually been working in isolation for a while. And what we've realized is that we need to have a platform to bring together the private sector, other stakeholders such as the United Nations agencies that respond in this sort of crisis. And this platform is a web-based, it's interactive, it's online, and it will provide a resource that will enable all the stakeholders to come and share their ideas together in one platform. Now, from our practical experience, the private sector has very good solutions to some of the challenges that we face, particularly in food crisis. However, the private sector does not have the social and contextual understanding of the responses to the humanitarian crisis on the ground. This is something that organizations such as World Vision have a deep understanding of, and they bring this sort of expertise to the table. Mm-hmm. So the platform will provide them with that opportunity to bring together the great minds from the public sector, the private sector, and the NGOs in order to build a coordinated response. And this is, for us, the biggest benefit that we see the platform providing.
Right, beyond sharing information, because as someone in the private sector, I could pull data from FuseNet, I could pull data on crop production from the agricultural ministries in whatever countries I operate in, and actually have a fairly clear picture of what's going on. So beyond just providing data and making sure everyone is seeing the same picture, what else does this do?
Well, in a humanitarian crisis, the greatest thing is time. Time and information can make the difference between vulnerable children and women having a reduced impact on a crisis. And this platform will do three things mainly. First, it will enable people to build very effective partnerships by identifying the capacities that each partner has beforehand. And so in a time of crisis, we know who is doing what and who has a capacity to respond immediately. Then secondly, one of the failings we have had in the past is on documentation. We go through the crisis, like one you mentioned earlier, but we don't stop to learn what went right and what went wrong. And this platform will provide that forum for us to really reflect and learn and see what we can do differently. And lastly, it's basically the coordination of effort. When you have everyone coming together at the same time, then we are able to build together a response that is fast, efficient, and enables the communities to get what they need when they need it.
Indeed. One last question for you. Strictly speaking, disaster response is a job of governments, and these companies pay taxes, we pay taxes that enable these same governments to actually do that particular job. Isn't there a risk that shareholders will ask you, organizations like yours, why should you contribute to this when you're already paying government money to deal with this problem? That would essentially be double taxation.
I think the reality is that humanitarian crises are growing in number and they're becoming more complex. So government does have a role, and government is playing its role to the extent that it can, but government does not operate in a vacuum. The people who are affected by humanitarian crises are actually the customers for the private sector, and they are the people who the humanitarian sector are serving. So it is important that when they're in need and when they have the occasion where we can respond to these needs, that everybody responds to the greatest capacity that they have. And I think the other thing which is a fundamental of giving is that we all like to feel a part of the greater society, and we want to play our part in making somebody's life better. So in as far as the government is using the taxes, we also have a responsibility and indeed want to be part of the solutions to some of the challenges that we see happening and experience in our country.
All right, we'll leave it there for the time being. Thank you very much for your time this evening.